Hello, hello. All right, so today we are going to be looking at how to make a line drawing with what I would call undulating waves. So that means waves that kind of flow. So ultimately, we're going to be doing something like this. All right, so that looks pretty complicated when you just look at it, but it's actually not that complicated. So this is all just about how you put lines on the page, but the first thing we need to think about is what not to do with lines on our page. All right, so before we even get to this point or anywhere close to it, we want to think about how do we make clean lines? How do we make a good line? So I'm going to show you a couple what not to do's before we get there. All right, so on this paper right here, we're going to show you what lines that you shouldn't be making look like. Okay, now there are a place and a time for every single kind of line there is, but for this project, these lines don't belong. So you don't want to do something that is really kind of like uneven, almost tattered like this. You want to keep your lines nice and neat and even. So instead of just going back and forth to make your line, you want to do one strong line. All right, now that's great, but one of the other things that happens a lot with something like this is people imagine this is your paper. Instead of just drawing your line from one side to the other where it touches each side, people want to hurry. So they might draw a line kind of like this, kind of hurrying along, and it doesn't touch the edges and it looks really uneven. They might go like this with it, trying to go across. These lines are not nice, even, neat lines. So how do we fix that? All right, so if we zoom in here just a wee bit, sorry for the wobble. If we zoom in here just a little bit here, what I want to do is connect the end. That's it. That's all you really have to do is connect the end for this one. Now, something like this, you might have to do a little bit more work. So you would just take it, make your line just a wee bit little thicker here, just a tiny bit, and clean up your edges. That's really what you need to do. And then you can extend it. You can even taper it down, make it smaller as you take it towards the edge there. Now that does make a much more bold line, so we want to try to avoid that for this project unless that's the look you're going for. So overall, you want to just take it slow. Go from one side to the other. That's all we're doing. Just going from one side to the other. Now we want to keep our lines tight together, really, really close. Now that's really close. And as a matter of fact, that's even closer. It actually touches. That's okay. We can do that. As a matter of fact, when we look at this final piece, all these areas that it looks like waves are areas that just the lines have touched. Okay, so that's really what we're going to be going for overall. So how do we get there to begin with? I usually just start at the corner. So here's a piece that I've started recently, and it's just like a little piece. And let me see if I can set something there on the corner. Just a little piece like right here. And let's back up a little bit from this. Again, excuse the wobble. All right, so all I'm doing is going from one side to the other. Now there are some areas right here where it touches, kind of like I showed you before. And I go and I touch, and I draw my line and I touch, and then I keep going. Now, how do I change from that transition? I'm going to change on this one over here, and I'm going to make this one a little bit less as well. So I'm going to just not touch or touch in a different spot. So this one, actually, I think I'm going to touch that one more time. Well, I got a little bit off on that one. And then over here, you can see I overlapped and now there's a gap and it doesn't look too neat. So I'm going to go ahead and just connect those and make it look like it belongs. So there's a couple other places where I have things like that too. Right here, I have some ink blurbs, like where the ink just came out a little bit much. I'm gonna just go in there and make that line just a teensy bit thicker and clean it up. So I'm just gonna make that line a little bit nicer right there, and there we go. So overall, when I'm doing this, I'm just paying attention to where my lines are, where they touch, and moving on to the next spot. So I keep going and I start all the way from the corner. So I'm gonna start one, kind of doing this in reverse. I'm gonna start one from the far corner, like from a blank piece of paper. Excuse me for just a moment. Let me grab my paper. It's sticking to the other one. Hang on. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna grab my blank piece of paper. And again, I'm just gonna start in the corner and then I'm gonna build up. So just start in the corner right here. And you can start with whatever shape you want. You could even do this with zigzags. I'm gonna flip this over to the other side and show you how you could do it with zigzags. So I just keep going and I follow the lines that I've done before. What I don't want to do with this particular assignment is just make, if this is the corner of my paper, just make random wavy lines like this that don't really match. That's not gonna make this effect. So I want to avoid random wavy lines. I want to match the line as closely as possible that I did before. And you can see the difference here. So these are pretty closely matched and those aren't. And then again, I can dip them, but they still kind of go back to following each other. Okay, so even though I do make some changes, they still go back to following each other. And that's what I do on this. So I just keep going, touch and go. Keep going, touch and go. And eventually you'll have the whole page filled. Now, how do you do this with zigzags? All right. So zigzags are just that. They're zigzags. You know, you just draw and follow the line that you make. This is going to give you a whole different look. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to just keep making the zigzag, and as I get further out, I'm going to add the other parts of it. Now if I want it to kind of blend in together, I can do that just like I did with the other one. Kind of touch them together. And I'm going to start having some of this bend in from somewhere else. So bend in a little bit, zigzag out. But you can see that that makes the line a little bit different than on the curved one. So you're going to have a whole different look. And it's harder, honestly, to keep this one looking nice. You can, but it's a little bit harder. So just keep going and making your zigzags. And I don't have a finished one of this, so we'll just go a little bit with this. But I personally prefer the undulation, the curves, because it's a little bit like the ocean, and I love the ocean. But you could do something like this. That would be fine if you want. It's just all about making sure you control your line and you get neat results. Now I did get a little bit of a wobble there on this one. I'm gonna just go in, make that a little bit neater right there. And it does add that darker area, but that's okay. So you're not gonna necessarily be perfect with this, and that's okay. But just, you can see it's already starting to morph shape. And it makes this kind of interesting thing where it looks like it's popping out of the paper a little bit. Make sure when you are using your pen that you try to use a pen that doesn't smear very much, because your hand will be going over this. Mine did smear a bit right there. These are usually okay with that. But they do tend to add ink blurbs, like little splats in certain areas. So hopefully you have a pen that doesn't do that. If you do use pencil, please remember, do not erase. Okay, you don't want those eraser marks there. So just keep that. All right, so I hope this gave you a little bit of an idea. I hope you have some fun with this. I'm gonna go back and show you one more time this last one. And I hope you guys get to make some amazing creations. Hopefully I get to see them too. All right, best wishes. Have a great day. Bye-bye.